Hi everyone, so in this video I'm going to be explaining to you what's going to happen, what your opportunities are and what your situation will be if you have Ketu in the 11th house and Rahu in the 5th house of your birth chart. I hope this will be interesting and informative for you. So let's get started straight away with understanding what this axis will actually mean. Now, this is quite an interesting axis. Ketu here is your past life karmas, and Rahu is where you need to be moving towards in this life to resolve some of these outstanding karmas. It's the path which you have to take in this lifetime. And it doesn't really matter what the other grahas are or where they are. This is the most important factor really in your chart. Now, as I've said before, Rahu does far better when it's on its own, and so does Ketu, but rarely are they on their own. Often we're going to have other grahas here, and so that would be a completely different video. So let's just focus on this axis. So this means that you have come into this incarnation with a fate, as it were, to make money. It's quite a very interesting place to have Ketu. Why is that? Well, it's simply because you have earned this from your past deeds. Now, not everybody is going to be super wealthy with this, but you will find that you attract to you very easily lots of opportunities for earning money. It's about what you earn more than what you might have from inheritance, but there can be also that side of it too. You're very good at making the most of your opportunities career-wise and making lots of money for yourself, so that's a default position, okay? But in this lifetime, that will never satisfy you. You need to move towards being less concerned with your material gains and your material acquisitions, and really more concerned with what you can give to other people, particularly to your children. So let's have a look at how it's going to work out. So when you have this position of Ketu, as I've just said, you have a karma for really making money easily. You easily find the opportunities, okay, to make wealth. And, what do you do when you get the wealth? Well, you are very easily detached from it as well. And by that, I don't mean that you lose the wealth. I mean that you just store it all up and don't worry about it too much. Why is that? Because you've dealt with that in your past lives. So in this life, you may end up really becoming, philanthropic and being very involved in charity work and so on. That's because you are detached from your gains. But you may also have a lot of involvement with large groups and organizations, but often these can cause you some distress. Now, by large groups, I don't just mean it could be schooling and so on, but really it's about organizations such as politics and large organizations in any way which deal with groups of people coming together, okay? And so even though you do get involved with charity work and this, it can actually cause you some difficulty too and a bit of controversy, and you also find that actually when you get involved in these large groups, let's take an example of, say, a political party, that you become involved in it and then you become disillusioned. You very quickly become disillusioned with larger groups. Okay, you become disillusioned with their purpose, what they're doing. You begin to not believe in their purposes anymore, and you become detached from them. Now let's just have a look at the aspects here because they're actually quite interesting. Okay, Ketu has got a 5th aspect on the 3rd house of siblings. Now this is very interesting. What you often find here is that you have a particular strong relationship with one sibling more than the others. And it's almost like you put them on, like a pedestal, and it's impossible for them to live up to what you would like them to be. I've seen this a lot. And you often find that at some time in your life, often during this particular dasha, things come crashing down in relation to that sibling. That is one thing I've seen. Okay, the other thing I've seen is that you do tend to have an enormous amount of short distance, travel from a very early age, and you're almost always on the go. You're never standing still. You're a very busy person. You're always coming and throwing, coming and going, not coming and throwing, coming and going, and hardly anybody knows where you are from one moment to the next. And that's all coming from your past life inclinations, okay, to be on the move. All right, but when you go through that particular time period, then that's a time, the Ketu time period, when you'll find that these sibling issues in particular become very, very sort of prominent. And it will often be a younger sibling. That's what I found also. And because it's the third house of younger siblings. Now, here's an interesting thing, the aspect on the 7th house of relationships. There can be a very strange relationship with your first spouse. I don't want to hack this too much. It all depends on the signs and all the grahas involved. But there can be at least one failed marriage. There can be a completely incompatible relationship that throws you off balance for a long time, and it's normally your first relationship. You're completely incompatible, and you don't realize it until later. And then very often your second marriage is much better, but still there is this sort of disillusionment which you find in your relationships. You don't form relationships easily. You don't form relationships well. And you often sort of detach yourself and just become removed in an emotional, mental way from your spouse. It doesn't mean that your relationships can't work out, but it does mean that you need to try to be more physically there, try to be more like emotionally present than you may feel inclined to be. Okay, and again, this is going to come to the fore during the dasha periods of Ketu. Now let's move on to Rahu in the 5th house. So when you have Rahu here in your 5th house, you have a sort of Leo sense of all this, okay? Because like Aquarius with the 11th house and Leo is the 5th house in the natural zodiac. Now this may be in any sign whatsoever, but there's a Leo input into this 5th house. Okay, so what does that mean? You are compulsive really about all those Leo things, okay? Creativity, the way you dress, looking smart, looking snazzy, because there's a 1st house influence. And you want to, you might also be quite sporty. I've seen a lot of sporty individuals have this. You are competitive. You like to compete in the way you look, in the sports you do, in your creativity. You may be very much attracted to like a media career or to anything where you can let yourself loose and be special, be different, okay, because you enjoy that spotlight on yourself. But it's a new thing to you, and so you enjoy it and you run away from it into the larger group all the time. It's a big dynamic here going on. So you like the spotlight on yourself and you like to have that attention, but sometimes it gets too much and you go to your default position. Okay? Now, children. Children will be a huge karmic thing for you in this lifetime. It's very, I've never seen this. It would be very unusual to not have children and to have Rahu here. Again, you'd be looking to aspects and you'd be looking to particular signs and planets. But you would want to have children and you would not be content until you did have children. But actually, when you get children, there is a feeling of not being able to relate to them on some level. You may be compulsive in your relationship with them. It's like you don't know how to be yourself with them. You don't know how to be natural with your children. You may be trying too hard. There's something about that, okay, because the fifth house is a house of joy and happiness, but it doesn't come over that way to you when you are with your children. Why is that? Well, that's to do with your past life karma. You didn't give enough attention to children in your past lives, and now you need to, and you find it hard. Okay, so there may be some issues. And there's a really interesting factor here, and that's this ninth house aspect here. Now, the ninth house is your father, and there may be some strong connection, okay, between your father and your children. I'm not saying that your father has reincarnated as your children, but that could happen. What you are going to find is that your father and his concerns, which were not easy for you, have become, sort of reactivated in your relationship with your children. You'll have to think about this. Okay, so this ninth aspect shows a difficult relationship with your father, okay, and your guru. It can be either. It shows a very strange relationship with your father where you are compulsively trying to please your father, but it never seems to work. And then when you have your children, the same scenario happens. You are compulsively trying to please your children, and it never seems to work out in the same way. And also, one of your children may be very like your father, may have the same name as your father. You may decide to name them after your father, but there's some karmic thread through the father and children, and it's very special and also quite challenging. Okay, so when you go through your Rahu Dasha, wow, your creativity is going to peak. It's going to peak in a massive way. You're going to find new ideas, new opportunities, new areas of endeavor. Your sporting activities will increase. Everything where you can show off to the world will increase. The whole focus of your life will be on your own self, maybe travel, but children also, obviously. But really, so Rahu Dasha is about really proving to the world what you can do, how creative you can be, how sparkling you can be. It may bring new romance into your life. Very often romance is a big thing with the fifth house, but the sort of romances are often found here with this Rahu is through foreign travel, through new cultures, through going into different areas of life that you've never been before, almost compulsively. Okay, and these will not always lead to marriage either. Okay, so it's a very, dynamic placement of Rahu here, very dynamic indeed. And I would say that the key thing is, even though you are a very kind-hearted, philanthropic person, that in this lifetime you need to focus on yourself and your needs. And don't be so unselfish. You need to focus on the kids, obviously, and be there for them. But don't forget your needs, okay? Because you're so compulsive about your children that you may actually neglect your own needs. Okay, so I do hope that was a useful video for you, and I'll be posting more in this series soon. So goodbye for now.